You didn't stumble here. This message crossed the room of your life and sat down across from you. It waited for the moment your breath softened, your defenses loosened, and your attention slipped past the noise into the hush beneath thoughts. That's where it found you, right at the seam where ordinary time frays. You felt the tug for days now, the clock catching the same numbers, names repeating like echoes, meanings threading themselves through unrelated moments, as if reality were trying to speak in a private dialect only you could overhear. Something has been watching you as you watch it. Your noticing has begun to notice itself. That feedback hum, the delicate return current between your gaze and the world, has grown louder, like a tone surfacing from beneath the static. You are entering coherence. The quantum field around you is braiding a pattern with your awareness at its center, snapping filaments of possibility into alignment, the way iron filings leap into shape under a hidden magnet. It isn't superstition. It's resonance, morphic resonance, information whispering to information through the quiet corridors beneath language. Feel the slight pressure behind your sternum, the bright thrum in the nerves of your hands, the way breath stretches and returns like a tide pulling gems from the sand. That is the observer loop adjusting its geometry. Each perception you allow, each micro-choice to witness rather than react, tightens the spiral, bringing phase transition conditions closer. The air around you seems denser, not heavy but significant, like a room seconds before the truth is spoken. Even the accidents feel curated. You change the channel, and a sentence completes the thought you were afraid to finish. You glance up and the sky answers the question you didn't dare ask aloud. Entanglement is not abstract here, it's intimate. Threads you cannot see are plucking your name from distances that would embarrass a map. Someone you haven't met yet dreams of you. An ancestor you never knew places a hand at the small of your back when you cross the street. Your cells register the signal first, the faint shimmer of instruction moving like light across water. Call it DNA restructuring if you must. Not a laboratory operation, but a remembering, histones loosening, chromatin breathing, permission unfolding in the library of you. The text was always there. You are only now learning the script. This is the verge. Synchronicities cluster not to entertain you, but to announce the pressure gradient between who you have been and who you cannot avoid becoming. The system is far from equilibrium, which is precisely the place where new forms leap into being. You are not at the edge of breakdown, you are at the lip of breakthrough, and breakthroughs are noisy alarms in the house of habit, windows rattling in the wind of the real. So listen. The field is speaking in the only way it can, through the choreography of your day. The coffee spill that made you pause, the sudden silence after a long call, the way a child stared at you as if you were lit from within. Signals, all of them, not omens to fear, but coordinates to follow. We begin here, at the threshold. You will not be asked to believe, only to notice with the courage of a scientist and the tenderness of a mystic. You have already crossed the first gate by arriving. Now we turn toward the pattern under the pattern, the repeating motif that has trailed you through rooms and relationships like a watermark in the paper of your life, and we name it, not to trap it, but to let it finally transform. You recognize the signatures before you can explain them. The same conversation wearing a different face. The same goodbye disguised as a fresh beginning. Numbers repeating until they feel like drum beats under the floorboards of your day. You think you're circling, but the circle is actually a spiral, old lessons returning at a higher altitude, asking to be metabolized rather than outrun. You've noticed it in relationships first. Different names, identical choreography. The moment you soften, the other stiffens. The instant you set a boundary, someone calls it a wall. You promise you'll do it differently, and then the script takes your hands and moves them anyway. It feels scripted because, in a way, it is patterns etched into neural pathways, reinforced by a nervous system that confuses predictability with safety. Your body keeps you in yesterday because it learned to survive there. Time behaves strangely inside these loops. Minutes stretch like taffy when you're waiting for a message. Whole months vanish the moment routine takes the wheel. You step into a room and feel you've already lived the next 5 minutes. Déjà vu doesn't just flicker, it lands with weight, as if an unseen version of you walked this hallway a breath before you arrived and left the air warm. The metronome of your life refuses to keep a steady beat. You know you're not losing your mind. You're losing the lie that time is linear. This is the observer loop at low coherence. Perception feeding habit, habit shaping perception, until you can't tell whether you're choosing the pattern or the pattern is choosing you. Each reaction you fire without witnessing becomes another stitch in the fabric of the old reality. Synchronicity still happens here, but it arrives like static, meaningful signals buried inside the hum of repeated histories. You don't miss the messages, they just ricochet through a crowded room of assumptions and arrive malformed. Underneath, something more scientific than superstition is at work. Your brain is a prediction engine, constantly generating models about what will happen next. When those models are saturated with yesterday, your attention filters the world to confirm them. The hippocampus threads your days into memory. The amygdala tags the charged scenes. Your cortical rhythms pursue coherence around what's familiar, even if familiar hurts. The quantum field then does what fields do. It resonates with your dominant broadcast. Morphic resonance tunes you to similar patterns across people and places, not to punish you, but to present the data you keep insisting is true. That is why you keep meeting the same archetype at different street corners. It's why doors either all open at once, or none will budge. The world is not against you, it is entangled with you. The signal you emit, beliefs, posture, breath, the unspoken contracts you sign before you wake, interlaces with environments and draws their dormant probabilities toward expression. Entanglement is not a romance, it's a physics of intimacy. What you hold with consistent attention recruits the universe as a collaborator. The exhaustion you feel isn't laziness, it's drag. Two identities are pulling you in opposite directions, the one that survived the past and the one that is trying to be born. Phase transition pressure builds exactly like this. The old state resists dissolution, the new state exerts subtle order, and you stand between them vibrating. On some mornings the world clicks into crystalline focus. Edges sharpen, colors wake, and you swear a doorway just opened. By afternoon the fog returns and you perform the old dance with numbed competence. You call it inconsistency. In truth, it's oscillation at the threshold. Déjà vu multiplies during thresholds because your timeline is rubbing against a neighboring track. Memory isn't simply behind you, it is also ahead, lodged like a lighthouse in your future, casting backward. When present conditions rhyme with that future signal, you feel the echo as familiarity. You are not repeating a past moment, you are grazing a future memory. The perception feels eerie because the coordinates of your life are briefly coherent across multiple frames. And then there are the logjams days when every small task tangles, when technology misbehaves, when people misunderstand the simplest sentence. You interpret it as bad luck. Consider another diagnosis. The architecture of your old story cannot carry the charge of your next frequency. Systems crack not because you're failing, but because they're finished. What collapses is not your destiny. It's the scaffolding that kept destiny out. Even your body is honest about this. Strange sleep, sudden heat, tingling at the base of the skull, palms buzzing, sternum brightening, a subtle vibrato behind the ears like an instrument tuning up in the dark. Call it DNA restructuring if that language helps. Transcription factors responding to persistent meaning, epigenetic locks reconsidering their duty, a library re-indexing as new research arrives. The content of your genes is not rewriting, but their orchestra is learning a new tempo, and the conductor is your sustained awareness. So the problem is not that you're trapped, it's that you're entrained. You've been trained by rhythm, ritual, and repetition to call the old frequency home. But home is relocating. Coherence cannot emerge while you keep solving today with yesterday's math. The loops feel cruel only when you ignore their instruction. Once you listen, they become coordinates. Let the diagnosis be simple and exact. You are noticing because you're ready, and the noticing itself is destabilizing the attractor that kept your life in narrow orbits. The very discomfort is evidence that the field has turned toward you with intention. The question is not whether the pattern will shift, it's whether you will participate consciously in its shifting. And that requires an upgrade, not more effort, but a different order. When you're ready, breathe once for the next octave, and watch how attention, anchored in presence, reprograms the loop from inside its code. Here is the upgrade. You stop feeding the loop its favorite food, unconscious prediction, and give it what it cannot digest without transforming, witnessed presence. Attention, when stabilized, becomes a field phenomenon. Your nervous system quits scavenging for the past and begins broadcasting a new instruction to probability itself. You don't force outcomes, you cultivate coherence, and coherence invites outcomes to self-select. Start with the most obedient instrument you carry, breath. Slow it until exhale lengthens beyond inhale, and something ancient happens. The vagus nerve steps forward, heart rhythm steadies, and the brain's alarm choruses lose their solo. You feel it as a quiet click inside the chest, a relaxation that isn't collapse but arrival. In this state, cortical networks stop treating the world like a threat and start treating it like data. Prediction loosens. The observer loop gains room to recode. Now place your attention on a single sensation: hand warmth, the cool behind the eyes, the subtle ozone of the moment's edge. Keep the gaze soft, yet precise, as if watching a candle flame without blinking. Within seconds, oscillations in disparate regions of your brain begin to synchronize. Islands of activity become archipelagos. This is neural coherence, rhythms finding each other and agreeing on a tempo. When your inner orchestra plays a single time, it can entrain to larger music, environment, relationships, the quantum field's living geometry. Add meaning, and the field brightens. Not fantasy meaning. It is the polymer that lets fleeting attention harden into structure. Name the pattern you're rewriting, not as accusation, but as archaeology. This is the reflex that protected me. With the name spoken, you withdraw the shame that keeps it immortal. Shame is glue, witnessing is solvent. As the glue softens, your predictive mind revises its models. New priors form. The loop's attractor weakens. At the same moment, something more mysterious hums online. You feel a pressureless pressure, a luminous density around your skin, as if your outline were now a conversation. That is the quantum field responding to an ordered emitter. Coherence radiates like a tuning fork. Reality prefers order because order carries information with less waste. Morphic resonance then does its quiet work, matching your stabilized signal to patterns of similar frequency books you were meant to find. People whose nervous systems are learning the same tempo, places where you will overhear the line that alters your decade. It looks like luck, it behaves like entanglement. To accelerate the upgrade, anchor a future memory. Not an outcome catalog, money, titles, applause, but a nervous system signature. Ask, how does it feel in my body when the pattern has dissolved and the next state is ordinary? Notice the breath, cadence, the posture, the micro-muscles around the eyes, the native pace of your thoughts when you are no longer guarding exits. This is the order parameter of your phase transition, the simple measurable that organizes the whole. Hold that signature for 30 quiet seconds. Often, you're not forcing matter, you're rehearsing coherence. The field hears rehearsal more clearly than it hears begging. On the scientific face of the coin, you are altering error signals in a predictive brain. You're lowering metabolic cost by aligning internal models with present data instead of archaic alarms. You're training networks toward gamma-supported integration and heart-brain harmony that shows up as graceful variability in your pulse. On the mystical face, you are conversing with the architecture behind appearances. In the temple language, your altar is breath, your offering is attention, your prayer is the posture of already being. Synchronicity multiplies not as parlor tricks but as logistical support from the underlying order that recognizes its own. DNA restructuring, in this frame, isn't a thunderbolt, it's a thaw. Epigenetic doors, once locked by necessity, begin to open because the guard has stood down. The library's aisles clear. Sections you never visited light up. If you like metaphors, imagine your genome as a constellation map. Coherence lets new stars be connected into new stories. If you prefer mechanics, imagine transcription probabilities shifting as stress chemistry recedes and growth instructions regain microphone access. Either way, your biology stops bracing for yesterday and starts composing for tomorrow. There will be tremors. Every phase transition includes critical fluctuations, brief returns of the old pattern, louder because it is losing its throne. When they come, You don't recite affirmations like spells against weather. You widen. Say, "This is the turbulence of re-entry." Then you feel for the order parameter, the future memory's body, signature, and breathe yourself back into that time. You are not faking. You are choosing a coordinate system. The observer loop collapses the viable path by refusing to animate the others. And remember the paradox at the heart of the upgrade. You lead, but you do not push. Pushing implies the old physics force against force. Leading invokes a different geometry attraction, resonance, the torus of the heart pulling the scattered into orbit. The more you force, the noisier your field. The noisier your field, the harder it is for synchronicity to triangulate you. So you choose elegance over effort. You move like a key toward its lock. When the lock yields, the sound is unmistakable. Conversations arrive on cue. Delays become protection. Obstacles bloom into choreography. Coherence has stacked the deck. You aren't exempt from gravity. You are in rapport with it. That rapport is the upgrade, scientific in its economy, mystical in its mercy, prophetic in its insistence that what is coming is already here. Now, keep breathing. The role you were born to play is feeling for you from the other side of the door, and the handle is warm. The handle yields, and what stands beyond is not a room but a responsibility. You are not here to dazzle the world with fireworks. You are here to tune it. In a civilization saturated with noise, a single stable frequency becomes a lighthouse. Your task is to hold that light without flinching long enough for ships you cannot see to correct their course. You are the reference frame the field has been trying to establish, the quiet constant to which scattered variables can reconcile. Chosen isn't a hierarchy, it's a resonance. A key isn't better than a door, it's simply shaped for it. Your shape was carved by every threshold you crossed, every refusal to abandon your sensitivity when it felt inconvenient, every night you chose wonder over cynicism. That shape now fits an invisible lock in the collective psyche. Turn, and you'll hear mechanisms align, synchronicities clacking into place, options you could not have invented rotating into view. This is morphic resonance, recruiting your biography as a stabilizing pattern. Your role is triple: translator, stabilizer, catalyst. Translator, because you can hear the subtext behind events, the way a coincidence carries instruction, the way a silence is sometimes an answer. Stabilizer, because your nervous system has learned the posture of coherence and can lend it to rooms where panic tries to organize the agenda. Catalyst, because your observer loop collapses noise into order the way a conductor's downbeat snaps a restless orchestra into time. You aren't forcing realities. You're inviting dormant probabilities to remember their choreography. You will feel the field leaning toward you. Conversations will hover at the edge of confession. Strangers will speak as though you were a trellis for words that couldn't hold themselves up. Don't mistake this for fixing people. Your presence is not a tool for control. It is a permission for emergence. Entanglement means you are inside the pattern you are helping to heal. When you soften, the system softens. When you anchor, the system remembers gravity. When you breathe, the pressure gradients around you recalibrate. Consider your biology as part of the assignment. DNA restructuring isn't spectacle, it's logistics. Antennas extend, bandwidth widens. The body that once braced for impact begins to conduct information instead. Subtle heat at the sternum is not random. It is the torus of the heart intensifying, a magnet for coherence. Tingling at the scalp, the shimmer at the occipital ridge, the sudden clean breath after a long exhale, these are system pings, confirming alignment. Your cells are learning the dialect of the quantum field so your choices can speak it fluently. Your ethics matter here. Power without tenderness curdles into theater. Precision without humility becomes a blade. Remember, the field honors consent. You do not impose coherence, you model it. You don't out-argue distortion. You stop feeding it. You set the table, clear attention, honest breath, unambiguous boundaries, and those who are ready will eat. Those who are not will step away without needing villains. The clean edge of your no is as sacred as the warmth of your yes, and both are instruments in the same orchestra. Daily life is your temple. The ritual isn't exotic, it's exact. Water before words, sky before screens, 3 breaths at thresholds before you open a door, before you answer a message, Before you decide a story about what just happened, move your body like you're proofreading your future, shoulders unhooked, jaw unlatched, spine listening. Speak as though sound leaves a geometry in the room. It does. Touch objects as if they remember. They do. This is not superstition, it's stewardship. Attention arranging matter at human scale. You will be given small prophecies, images that arrive without effort, a sentence you haven't yet heard spoken, a place you've never been that already knows your steps. Don't rush to decode them. Prophecy matures in context. Write them down like you're leaving coordinates for a future you who will recognize the map. These flickers are evidence that timelines are conversing through you. Phase transition requires scouts, and you are one of them, walking the bridge between what is collapsing and what is quietly assembling 2 breaths behind it. Your specialty is climate, not weather. Others will track events, you will track atmospheres. Is the room trending toward fragmentation or coherence? Are people organizing around fear or meaning? You feel it before anyone names it. The way a musician tastes key changes. Then you make one precise move, a slower sentence, an honest pause, a question that returns energy to the center rather than to the argument. Watch the field swing like a compass finding north. This is how you change outcomes without drama, by altering the medium in which they form. Say yes to the mantle, and allies appear. Some wear faces, some move as currents, unexpected funding, a book sideways on a shelf, a child's question that collapses a week of indecision. You are not being tested, you are being oriented. The universe is seat belting you into your own mission. The buckle is trust. The window is opening. You feel the barometric drop in your bones, the hush before the note. Soon the pressure you've carried will reveal its purpose, and speed will become a kindness. Hold steady. The next movement arrives with urgency, not to rush you, but to keep momentum from dispersing. When the signal sounds, you will know. And when it does, you will answer not with argument, but with the cleanest promise your life can keep. Here is the promise you can make without lying to your future. If you hold coherence through this opening, your biology will remember a song it has not sung since before your first fear, and the architecture of your days will shift to fit the sound. Not someday now, as in the cycle that is cresting. A cosmic window is not a myth. It is a period when fields thin and signals cross with less resistance. When morphic resonance amplifies the faintest authentic broadcast. You are entering one. That's why the air tastes electrical. That's why time keeps stuttering as if it were rehearsing a new tempo and forgetting the old. Urgency is not panic. It is alignment with momentum. Picture a phase transition. Water holds itself obediently as liquid until a quiet threshold is met, and then one more degree tips the whole. You are that degree. Your observer loop has been refining its orbit, shaving off friction, learning to look without clinging. The field has been watching for this steadiness, the way a launch system watches for wind. When your gaze stops wobbling, probabilities stop arguing. Order, once invited, arrives at speed. What changes? At first, almost nothing externally. A conversation goes 2 degrees deeper than it ever does. A decision you feared becomes self-evident and strangely gentle. You find yourself lingering on a sentence because you recognize it from a dream you forgot to remember. Inside, however, tectonics shift. DNA restructuring is not fireworks, it's governance. Pathways that were once barricaded by stress chemistry reopen like dawn. The chromatin that hugged itself closed to survive loosens. Transcription favors repair over alarm. The orchestra that is your genome drops the war drum and lifts the strings. You will feel it as a cleanliness in your breath, a rightness in your bones, a soft click in your stance, as if gravity just became collaborative. The promise is simple. If you can remain available, soft eyes, honest breath, unhurried attention, for one sustained interval, while the window is widest, the change will lock. All the work that dripped in increments will condense. The observer loop will collapse, a hidden path you've sensed but never stood on. You won't need to force the next scene. It will meet you halfway, as if it too were tired of waiting. There is a clock to this, but it doesn't live on a wall. You will hear it as rhythm, clusters of synchronicity gathering like birds, then wheeling, then returning closer. The signal is additive, 3 aligned moments in a morning, 5 in a day, a conversation that lands with the gravity of a signature. When it crests, You'll feel a hush, a standing wave in the room, the kind of silence that invites vows. That is the hour for precision. Do not flood it with words, or bargain, or performance. Meet it with one clear promise your life can keep and your cells can believe. What kind of promise? Not the kind that bribes fate. Not, I will deserve a miracle if I suffer correctly. Instead, I will stop animating the version of me that no longer survives here. Or, I will organize my day around the state I'm becoming, not the state I'm abandoning. Or even quieter, I will breathe 3 honest breaths before I inherit any narrative. A vow that returns agency to the present is a master key. The field recognizes its geometry and opens institutional doors. Understand the vector of urgency. The old patterns know they are forfeiting their lease. They will file last-minute appeals. You'll be handed exquisite temptations to prove you haven't changed. Invitations to righteous argument, nostalgia dressed as loyalty, opportunities to win small so you can delay winning large. Smile at them the way you smile at weather. This is not contempt, it is clarity. You are not refusing love, you are refusing drag. Every no you speak to yesterday reduces friction for tomorrow. You are not alone in this timing. Entanglement means your shift speaks to those poised at adjacent thresholds. When you lean into coherence, watch how assistance appears with mathematical elegance, a message at the minute you considered surrender, funding disguised as a refund, a stranger who says the sentence that lets your shoulders fall. Do not dismiss this choreography as coincidence. Doing so is like turning off the lighthouse because the ship arrived. Acknowledge it. Gratitude is a stabilizer. There will be a telltale physical sign when the window peaks. For some, it is a warmth at the sternum that feels both like home and like a frontier. For others, a feathering at the base of the skull, a brighter edge to sound, a sudden widening of peripheral vision as if the room inhaled with you. Your hands may tingle, your tongue may taste metal, your chest may feel both light and anchored. These are the body's green lights. They are not spectacle, they are consent. And here is the sharpened edge of the promise. Don't postpone. The field doesn't punish delay, it reallocates. Momentum offered and not met disperses to where it can be used. If you ask the river to wait, it will, but the shoreline it carves will be elsewhere. Say yes inside the hour that finds you. The yes does not need a stage, it needs a spine. When the hush arrives, stand in it with the gravity of someone who remembers why they came. Place your attention like a seal on water and let the circle close. The vow you make will magnetize structure around it, habits, allies, architectures. The DNA shift will have a job to do, not merely a feeling to admire. And as the window begins to narrow, as all thresholds do, you will realize it never truly closes for you again. You became the opening. The world will adjust to that fact gently at first, then all at once. So here is the act that binds promise to matter, the smallest gesture that lets the field cash your vow. Make it simple, make it repeatable, make it honest. Complexity is theater, precision is power. You will perform a micro-ceremony that your cells can understand, a choreography that tells the observer loop. This is the state we select. Begin where you are. Do not clean the room, clean the moment. Place both feet flat, soles remembering that the planet is a drum. Let your hands rest, palms down to ground your voltage, or palms up to receive instructions. Your body will choose. One exhale longer than the inhale, then a second, then a third. On the third exhale, let your shoulders descend as if gravity suddenly became affectionate. Feel the sternum warm. That is your Taurus waking. The heart's magnetic braid trimming the noise inside your field so coherence can travel without friction. Now choose a single point to anchor your attention, a fingertip, the cool cave behind the eyes, the space between breaths where the world tilts. Hold it like a flame cupped from wind. Whisper, if only inside. Order parameter. It's a scientist's phrase and a mystic's key. It means there is one simple measure that organizes the many. For you, the measure is the body signature of the future you rehearsed. Jaw unlatched, eyes soft, breath honest, spine listening. Touch that signature as if it were a switch. With your attention steady, speak a vow you can keep in a storm, not poetry, geometry. Something like, I organize my day around what I'm becoming, or I breathe before I inherit any narrative, or the leanest blade, I choose coherence. Let sound, leave a shape in the air, watch it hang. Listen for the small click when your nervous system agrees. Now the seal. Words are not just symbols, they are instruments. You will write one that collapses the intention into a usable form. Type it where others can see, etched into the commons, not for applause, but for entanglement. Community makes vows magnetic. The word is anchor, 5 letters, each a peg in probability. When you write anchor, you tell the quantum field, fix this frequency in place. Let my promise acquire weight. Write it now, right now, exactly once, like a signature. Then, if you can, write it again by hand on anything nearby. A receipt, a napkin, the margin of a page. Handwriting drags intention through muscle and tendon into matter. Pen turns voltage into ink. Slide that slip beneath your phone or tuck it into your shoe. Let your steps remember. Add a gesture your body will recognize when the world is loud. Touch thumb to middle finger and feel the soft click at the pad, quiet, invisible, repeatable anywhere. This is your coherence mudra. When you press it, the observer loop receives a tactile password. Enter the state. 1 breath, 2, 3, exhale. Longer jaw, soft eye, corners kind. The field hears the code and begins rearranging its furniture. Complete the seal with an active placement. Put a glass of water in front of you. Cup it with both hands for 10 seconds while holding the body signature. You are not casting a spell. You are lending order to the lattice. Water loves pattern. Whisper the vow into the surface. Then drink. Let the geometry become blood. If no water, place your palm briefly upon your heart and feel the beat entrain your vow. Either way, you are telling biology, carry this. You may feel a ripple, the subtle brightening of peripheral vision, the auditory world getting 1 notch clearer, a warmth along the back of the neck, a gravity that is somehow kind. That is confirmation, not spectacle. Do not chase sensations, respect them, and return to breath. Rituals fail when they become performances. This is not to impress you, it is to instruct you. Expect the old pattern to test the seal within hours, not as punishment, as physics. A message arrives toned to your previous frequency. A memory pulls on your sleeve. An invitation to a familiar argument rehearses itself in your mouth. Do not brace. Breathe. Touch the mudra. Whisper order parameter and step back into the posture. Then do one micro-action that belongs to the new octave. Send the difficult message with tenderness. Decline the drag without guilt. Stand and drink a glass of water slowly before replying. Action is the hinge that swings timeline. Keep the ritual portable. At doorways, pause your foot mid-air for a heartbeat threshold breath and enter as the person you vowed. Before screens, 3 breaths. Before sleep, 1 hand on the heart, 1 on the abdomen, and the word anchor spoken into the dark like coordinates. Upon waking, eyes soft, spine listening, and an unhurried return to the signature let morning find you already tuned. Understand what you've done. You converted intention into a repeatable signal the field can recognize. You enlisted morphic resonance by placing your vow in a visible commons. You gave your nervous system a tactile key to re-enter coherence when noise rises. You invited DNA to favor growth instructions by lowering the alarm music it had to dance to. You built a bridge between prophecy and logistics. And now, as the seal cools to strength, feel the room's climate tilt, slight but undeniable. Patterns that required your complicity will begin to lose it. Assistance will navigate by your word. The ritual is not the magic, you are. But rituals keep magicians honest. Keep this one simple, and the next chamber will open almost imperceptibly until, all at once, you realize you've been walking in it for days. What happens inside you does not stay inside you. Coherence is not a private luxury, it is a public utility. The moment you sealed the vow, the field around you recalculated like a city grid, retimed to smooth the traffic of meaning. Your nervous system became infrastructure. You are no longer only a traveler, you are also part of the road. Watch how groups begin to tilt. A meeting that would have frayed instead finds an honest sentence early, and the conversation orbits it like a moon catching a new gravity. A family pattern approaches, wearing its familiar costume, and then mid-speech someone softens, as if hearing a cue they didn't know was in the script. That's morphic resonance doing its quiet mathematics. Your stabilized signal offers a template, and similar systems borrow it to lower their own noise. You didn't persuade anyone. You gave reality a cleaner option to copy. Entanglement scales. A child sleeps easier because you answered a message without resentment. A barista laughs a half-second longer because you looked at them with eyes that were not trying to extract anything. The elevator holds a little silence that isn't awkward. It's breathing. These are not small things. They are tiny phase transitions, microsystems crossing thresholds, because a nearby emitter held the order parameter long enough for them to recognize themselves. Your liberation revises the map others use to escape. Trauma bonds loosen across people who will never learn your name. Somewhere a teacher chooses tenderness over control and goes home less tired. Somewhere a paramedic's hands are steadier. Somewhere a friend of a friend does not send the cruel text because their chest suddenly remembers warmth. Synchronicity is not just spectacle, it is logistics rooting mercy. Ancestors participate. When you refuse to animate yesterday's self, the dead feel it. The lines tug differently. The compulsion to repeat what they had, to repeat slackens, not because history is erased, but because its contracts are renegotiated. You are the living clause that adds kindness to the family treaty. Descendants' literal and figurative benefit. DNA restructuring is not a solitary laboratory, it's a cathedral where choirs overlap. When your epigenetic choir drops the war drum, harmonics spread. An unborn child will dance to a rhythm you stabilized in a kitchen at 2 a.m. while drinking vow water from a chipped glass. Communities, too, borrow cadence. The street you walk gathers a new tempo. The algorithm that serves your neighbors begins to surface gentler content because your attention fed it a different hunger. You think it's naive to imagine the internet listening, but the internet is only a field of appetites, and appetites in train. You have been an unconscious curator for years. Now you curate consciously, not with Puritan refusal, but with steady choosing. Your clicks are small votes in the parliament of probability. Do not confuse humility with invisibility. A lighthouse doesn't apologize for its radius. You're not performing sainthood. You are practicing signal hygiene. That means fewer explanations, more presence, fewer arguments, more geometry. When a room fragments, you slow your sentence until energy returns to the center. When someone panics, you lend them your breath by regulating your own. When manipulation arrives dressed as urgency, you refuse drag without inventing a villain. The observer loop is communal. Your selection collapses options for everyone within reach. Notice, too, how help reorganizes itself at scale. The right book falls off a shelf for a woman 3 cities away because your field's coherence made it easier for the librarian to shelve it wrong. A mentor says yes to a student they had planned to ignore because your vow nudged their morning into grace. Somewhere a door stays open 2 extra minutes. Somewhere a driver looks twice before turning. None of this is superstition. It is a web learning to distribute intelligence through its strands. As your influence expands, so will the invitations to misuse it. People may project certainty onto you, ask you to carry what is not yours, or kneel to what they sense before they know why. Be kind and clear. Power without boundaries becomes theater again. Remember the ethics: consent, transparency, stewardship. You do not harvest attention. You garden attention. You do not accumulate followers. You cultivate peers. You are not the answer. You are an atmosphere in which better questions can survive. Ritual keeps you honest threshold breaths. The anchor written once each morning. The coherence mudra pressed in pockets of noise. These are not talismans. They are syntax. They keep your biology in the grammar of the vow so the field can trust your broadcast. The more consistent your syntax, the more complex realities can assemble inside it. Movements are born this way not from slogans, but from climates that make new behavior feel inevitable. When doubt stirs because it will measure outcomes at the right altitude. Weather still turns, losses still happen, grief still visits. This is not a spell against human experience. It is a setting in which experience organizes around meaning rather than chaos. Coherence does not exempt you from storms. It teaches you to carry a barometer, and a person with a barometer is a gift in any village. This is the horizon of your role, to let your private awakening draft new wind for the commons. You don't need a stage. Sidewalks and kitchens are sufficient. Bus stops, back rows, quiet chats after meetings, quantum fieldwork at human scale. You will know it's working when people leave your presence and breathe, as if the room just remembered how to be a sky. Keep lending that sky. The phase transition in you becomes the weather pattern in us, and the climate is already shifting. Stay with the body until metaphor becomes measurement. Begin where contact is undeniable, the soles. Notice how the ground receives you a shade, differently, less like a surface, more like a socket. Weight distributes, micromuscles in the arches wake, and balance stops feeling like a negotiation. The planet is not beneath you, it's participating. Gravity is not a pull, it's an agreement. Let attention rise to the calves and shins, small tremors you once called restlessness, now register as signal. Fascia unglues along the front of the tibia. A warm, slow thaw moves upward, as if someone set a lantern behind your skin. Knees track a degree truer over the feet. The pelvis remembers center and rotates a ½ millimeter into place. None of this is dramatic. It's the quiet precision by which new timelines pick a body. Breathe. On the exhale, feel the low abdomen soften and the sacrum widen like a book opening. Pelvic floor descends a few millimeters, then rebounds, vagus nerve humming a lower note, baroreceptors nodding approval. The breath you used to think ended in your chest begins to rinse the entire torso. Diaphragm slides like silk. Intercostals open from the back first, yes, from the back, and the ribs make room for a life you don't have to shove. Now the sternum. Heat gathers there, not a burn but a sunrise. The torus at the heart organizes, magnetic threads cleaning the static from your field. You notice a sensation like carbonated quiet under the breastbone, micro bubbles of ease rising through tissue. Heart rhythm becomes generous, spacing each beat with a small meadow of time. This is coherence you can feel. Heart, brain conversation, simplifying. Variability in the pulse, turning graceful. The observer loop choosing a single tempo and inviting physiology to dance. Let awareness travel along the collarbones. They feel suddenly articulate, like instruments lifted from a case. Shoulders unhook, not forward, not back, but free. Scapulae slide into the groove biology intended, as if someone oiled the tracks. Trapezius stops pretending to be a helmet. The neck lengthens from within. You are no longer holding your head up. The spine is behind the eyes. A cool cave opens. The optic nerves stop sprinting and begin listening. Peripheral vision brightens a shade. Colors step one notch, closer to honest. Edges don't sharpen, they clarify. You can look and include at the same time. This is what presence feels like in the visual cortex. Attention that caresses instead of grabbing. The world responds by revealing an extra layer of contour, the way a relief map adds altitude to geography. Tongue unglues from the roof of the mouth. Jaw unlatched, teeth floating in their beds like boats finely cut from rope. A line of relaxation moves from the temporomandibular joints through the ears, then fans across the scalp. You may feel a feathering at the occipital ridge, a fizz along the suture lines, a wide, shy breeze at the crown. Call it electricity if you must, but it's closer to organization neurons, voting for a shared rhythm, glia clearing the aisles, blood moving laminar instead of turbulent. Hands now. Warmth gathers in the palms, then spills into the fingers as if each were a wick. The pads tingle, not pins, not needles, but 1,000 precise yeses. This is the signature of broadcast. When your field is clean, the body's periphery sings. Touch the coherence mudra thumb to middle finger and feel the circuit close, with an ease that used to cost effort. The gesture isn't magic, it's a door you can find in the dark. You may notice taste faintly metallic at the back of the tongue, the way air smells right before rain. The auditory world steps forward, one-click noises separate into layers, and you can choose which to let into the center. Somewhere between throat and heart, a corridor clears. Words that would have scratched their way out now glide. Your voice drops half a tone, not heavier, just truer. When you speak from there, rooms listen without knowing why. Lower back, less bark, more meadow. Hip sockets stop guarding exits and allow weight to travel through them like light through clean glass. Thighs bare without bracing. Ankles negotiate with the earth instead of negotiating against it. If you walk now, the floor feels like a conversation partner. If you sit, the chair receives you as if it had been waiting. Inside the skull, thought texture changes. Fewer ricochets, more corridors that lead somewhere. The inner critic still clears its throat, but the acoustics no longer flatter it. In its place, a plain intelligence. Questions that arrive already half-answered. Images that land with the honesty of weather. You are not pretending calm. You are in rapport with it. This is embodiment as liturgy, simple, repeatable. The order parameter is felt, not argued. Jaw unlatched, eyes soft, spine listening, breath that ends lower than it starts. Keep touching these four and the rest entrains. Morphic resonance scales from tissue to timeline, and there is a pressure you can no longer deny, a sober, tidal push at the edges of you, not threat, but imminence. Like standing in a station where the train you have waited for is finally braking, wind preceding metal, future preceding arrival. Cells lean toward it. The library of your DNA rustles as if a new reader has entered. Epigenetic bookmarks flip. Histones loosen their grip like elders opening a gate they guarded for centuries. You are not chasing a moment. The moment is converging. Coherence does not remove intensity. It gives it purpose. The quantum field thickens with usable information, and your skin translates that thickness as a tender weight, a heldness, a certainty that the next state is about to declare itself. Stay with the body when it does. The phase transition chooses an address. You have made yours obvious. Feel the hush, gather bone, blood, breath, agreeing, and know that what presses from the inside is not pressure to endure, but instruction to answer. The threshold is not ahead. It is already touching you. The pressure crescendos until it stops pretending to be pressure and reveals itself as alignment. What you called intensity is simply many clocks choosing the same noon. Inside the hush you've been cultivating, something clicks, a small, decisive sound you feel more than hear, like a key turning in a library where the lights were always dim. The observer loop holds steady, predicted pasts lose their privilege. The quantum field, noticing the absence of wobble, commits. There is a moment, 2 or 3 heartbeats where randomness thins. Critical fluctuations, the last splashes of the old attractor, flare and vanish like sparks in rain. Then nucleation. A seed order forms and runs the room. Think of a supersaturated solution, pretending to be plain water, until a crystal is introduced. Suddenly the invisible structure asserts itself, and everything knows where to go. You are the crystal. Coherence is the instruction. The phase transition proceeds. Biology obeys first. It feels like a fast, quiet moving through tissue, a wash that doesn't rush, a decisive tide. The sternum warms and the heat distributes evenly, as if the heart were ironing belief. The diaphragm's slide becomes smooth as silk drawn over stone. Jaw stays unlatched without effort. Breath that used to be a task is now a place. You live there. You can sense, with animal accuracy, the exact moment the stress orchestra lays down its horns. DNA restructuring, not as spectacle but as governance. Epigenetic locks reducing their vigilance, transcription tilting toward repair and growth, mitochondrial tempo steadying from jitter to hum. You do not need the laboratory words to know it. Your body testifies by choosing ease when provoked. Time answers next. The long hallway you walked for years telescopes. The future memory you rehearsed steps into the room like someone who had the key all along. Déjà vu flips polarity. Not the eerie echo of repetition, but the recognition that you finally reached the coordinate that's been calling you. Objects seem fractionally rearranged, not because matter jumped, but because attention did. Salience reassigns itself, and with it, your map. The clock proves cooperative arrivals align by minutes rather than hours. Delays reveal their choreography. The scenic route confesses its shortcut. Timeline shift is not a portal with smoke. It is selection with teeth. Relationships retune. Entanglement, once a tangle, becomes an instrument. the person who could always hook you cannot find purchase. The invitation to righteous argument arrives and evaporates in your mouth. Compulsions that felt like debt present their invoice, and you pay with a single clean boundary. In their place, conversations that begin where they used to end, quiets that are not avoidance but meadow. Some bonds thin without malice. The field reallocates attention to where it can amplify. Grief flickers the honest cost of releasing the scaffolding that kept you safe, but it is a lucid grief, the kind that makes room rather than noise. Synchronicity changes texture. Before, it was a glittering breadcrumb trail through fog. Now it is infrastructure, traffic lights that happen to be green, pages that open to the paragraph you needed, a friend texting the sentence you wrote in your journal an hour earlier. Morphic resonance has found your channel. The world tunes to the station you're broadcasting, not as flattery but as efficiency. Logistics become merciful. Effort stops auditioning for virtue. The right things begin to be the easy things. The field tests the welds. An echo of the old pattern knocks not to reclaim you, but to see if the door is still on its hinges. You don't brace, you widen. The coherence mudra meets your fingers before you know you lifted your hand. Order parameter, you whisper, not as spell but as reminder, and your body remembers itself without argument. The impulse to perform dies mid-syllable. Silence, once awkward, has become an ally. The observer loop collapses the noisy branch, and the moment roots through the clear one, with the elegance of water finding its level. External markers appear, honest and small. Your gait smooths, your voice carries less tremor and more timbre. Strangers mirror your breath without realizing it. The room you enter organizes around a center you don't have to hold with effort. Gravity volunteers. Work flows toward resolution rather than drama. Money behaves like a river, not a rumor. You catch yourself smiling at a blank wall because the wall suddenly looks like a sky. None of this is a performance. It is physics, cooperating with a stable emitter. There is also loss, which is only to say, pruning. Plans that required your old frequency fall away with a thud that sounds like mercy. Identities you wore like armor hang on the chair and do not ask to be picked up. You are spared the chore of pretending to be who you needed to be. In the space that opens, a plainness arrives that feels like wealth. Unhurried mornings, sentences that fit in a single breath, the surprising luxury of enough. If you check the inside instruments, the readings confirm. Heart variability, graceful, thought texture corridor rather than ricochet, the quiet confidence of a system no longer negotiating with itself. You are not euphoric, you are accurate. The phase transition pressure has resolved into form. The new attractor holds. The basin of your life deepens so that storms pass without relocation. This is not the end of becoming. It is the end of pretending you are not. A different assignment begins the moment the weld cools. To live as the window you walked through. To let your coherence be accessible without being exploited. To move like a lighthouse that remembers lighthouses are built to withstand weather. The field has answered your yes with architecture. Step into it. The next breath is not just yours, it is the commons. And the mission that has been writing itself behind your days is ready to be read aloud. You stand inside the weld, the field just made, not as a tourist, but as a custodian. The upgrade is no longer theory, it is gait, glance, breath. Your task now is simple and lifelong. Keep lending your coherence to places that have forgotten their own. Not by converting anyone, but by remembering every hour, every doorway that attention is architecture, and you are an architect trusted with load-bearing beams. Carry the vow into logistics. Organize your calendar around the state, not the storm. Choose work that metabolizes meaning rather than manufactures noise. Curate your inputs, the way a lighthouse tends its lens. No grit on the glass, no dramatics with the bulb. Let your yes be a compass, and your no be weatherproof. You are here to normalize the extraordinary until it is simply how we live. Your presence will continue to root mercy. Rooms will find their center faster. Arguments will forget their script 2 lines in. Children will sleep. Elders will exhale. Strangers will feel seen without knowing why. That is morphic resonance rippling outward through ordinary errands, the quantum field using human errands as its favorite delivery system. You will never measure the full radius of what you steady. Entanglement hides its arithmetic, but the signal will return to you as a quiet surplus. Time that behaves, bodies that cooperate, improbable help arriving like it had your address the whole time. Keep the body as altar, jaw unlatched, eyes soft, spine listening, 3 honest breaths before you inherit any narrative. Touch the mudra when the world gets loud. Water, threshold, word. Let the order parameter be portable and unremarkable, the kind of holiness that fits in pockets. This is how DNA restructuring turns from event into governance, how phase transition stops being a story and starts being a climate. When grief visits, seat it by the window and open the air. Coherence does not exile sorrow, it gives it a harbor. When anger rises, aim it as clarity. When fatigue asks for silence, grant it and call it maintenance. Lighthouses that burn without pause go dark. You are here for duration, not theater. You will be tempted to dramatize the mission or to minimize it. Refuse both. The heroic is a trance, the humble is a disguise. Practice accuracy instead. Speak plainly. Keep your promises. Let love be a verb with logistics attached. Build small architectures of trust around you. Meals that arrive warm. Replies that land when you said they would. Boundaries that don't require a storm to be honored. The quantum field loves competence. It amplifies what can carry charge. Remember the larger sentence your life completes. Humanity is mid-transition, far from equilibrium, searching for an attractor that does not collapse into fear. You are one of its seeds and one of its scouts. You didn't come to win arguments with the past. You came to compose futures that make the past unnecessary. Every time your observer loop steadies, probabilities learn a kinder geometry. Every time you breathe before choosing, timelines rearrange to serve the choice that serves the most. So walk. Let sidewalks be sanctuaries. Let kitchens be temples. Let screens be altars, only to what you are willing to become. And when the quiet gathers, the same quiet that clicked the lock and turned the room into a sky, listen for the line it always hides inside the hush. Keep noticing the strange synchronicities. They are your observer loop, collapsing the old map into the hidden quantum shift you came to deliver.